So, one of the biggest shifts I've seen since I've started doing abuse research and support is artificial intelligence as a tool. And I have used AI as a tool to help me analyze situations, but I want to put some cautions out there for a victim of abuse, trying to get a better understanding of their dynamic. Um, AI is notoriously bad at parsing out situations where maybe both people are engaged in behaviors on the spectrum of abusive behaviors. Um, AI doesn't handle those subtleties very well. And so if you are trying to figure out, like, oh, am I the abuser? Is this other person the abuser? And you might be someone who has started as a protective mechanism, started to do things that are technically on the spectrum of abusive behaviors. The AI is not going to handle your situation very well. Although from what I've seen, it'll generally default to like this isn't a safe situation, and you know, like speak to a counselor. Um, but so much of it is highly dependent on like what you are putting into the prompt and how you are clarifying the parameters. And another thing that I haven't seen victims of abuse do yet personally, but I am absolutely sure it's happening, or if it's not happening, it will happen, which is for victims of abuse to try and use AI as like an a, like a objective arbiter. I put this situation in the AI and it says that you're abusive. A lot of times, victims of abuse are trying to get the abuser to understand that they're being abusive. And so sometimes you'll see, them basically trying to rely on a therapist or a friend. You'll see them try and show the abuser like resources, like this is on the list of abuse. And my experience with that is that if an abuser finally does kind of clock into like, oh, this is on the list, they just switch to a different method. Like it doesn't change the underlying entitlement, selfishness, delulu that they're engaging in. And the other thing too is that abusers also are trying to litigate the situation and make the victim feel like they're the ones who are the abuser, or they're the ones who are responsible. And so, just in general, you do not want to take any information you have to an abuser. You do not want to say, like, oh, I read this and you're doing this, because what's going to happen is they're going to read that information and then start turning it around on you. 100% guaranteed every single time. Because someone who is abusive is somebody who is going to use every piece of information and every leverage they can find to make you responsible for what they're doing. It ends up being very confusing for most people. I think where AI really will excel as a tool for victims of abuse is where they can process their experience, and then the AI is like, okay, this is manipulation, here's why. This is what this is called, here's why. This is gat da 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 da. So you're gonna get, like, here's a list of ways this person is being abusive. This is why it's not okay. That's an area that a victim of abuse can use to really ground their understanding of the situation, what is happening. But be aware that an unsafe person is also going to be accessing these tools and skewing it toward their own benefit. So the last thing that you want to do is say, oh, I plugged this into the AI, and the AI, says that you're wrong. Like, that is not a future we want to go to. Um, as a tool for yourself, for bouncing ideas and trying to get clarity. You know, I always think it's great to. I'm a big believer in human involvement and ingenuity. And it doesn't mean that every single human being can like effectively analyze a situation, but that generally speaking, you know, humanity, when it comes together to apply their minds to something, you often get such a gestalt of creativity and inspiration. And so the AI, is kind of like, it's standing on the people who've already done that. It's standing on their shoulders and then presenting it as if it's their own. But it's not, um, there's that spark of something within us that intuition, let's say. Or if you're spiritual, like you might consider it like like a angel or like a guide or something like that. There's something that's unique to human beings. Whereas, the AI is a program executing a program. And it is a simulacrum of like the ways that human beings think, but it's a good one. So there's a reason that every once in a while, I'm like, let me just like plug this in, to the AI prompt and see how it handles the information. But I know for me, when I'm using it, there are many times where I'm like, no, that's not correct. This is why. And the AI will be like, oh, you're absolutely right, and then it'll redo the analysis. But it can do that for an abusive person. Yeah. So it's just, we want to be careful about the tools we use, and we want to make sure we're not sharing those tools with the abusive person, because they will use it against you. A lot of abusers are very smart, and they are very proactive with their internal ego defenses, their internal protection mechanism. They're extremely blame avoidant. And when you're someone who has like a blame orientation, if you're blame avoidant, you don't want the blame in your direction. That means it has to go somewhere else. You're the somewhere else. So anyway, just, as always, be very thoughtful with the tools, and, be engaged with therapy, or like an online community, or be calling a hotline. You want to have that human involvement. I always like to think of like, there's a lot of really smart people that are on this subreddit and also post comments, and I just think of it as the community brain trust. Like, if I miss something, somebody else is going to catch it, and I might have an insight, and then somebody else is building on that, or they have an insight and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so good. That gestalt that you get, like, that's so human. And so we definitely want to stay plugged into that, even when we're using these like very effective tools. So just like, let's keep the humans in it, and then let's also make sure that we are not sharing that with the abusers. They will use it against you. Anyway, I hope this makes sense, and I'll talk to you next time.